Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, and it's time for another color throwdown challenge. And this one I took literally, which if you go to my blog post, which is linked directly below the video, you'll see the inspiration image, which has a dog on it. So I was like, gonna use a dog for my card. So I pulled out the Tim Holtz Crazy Dogs stamp set. So many of you guys were requesting more cards with this set, so I was happy to oblige. So I started by stamping this dog image with MFT's hybrid craft ink. Their hybrid inks are waterproof, so they won't smear or bleed or anything when you're watercoloring with them. And normally I would stick with the black ink, but I wanted to try something different and just kind of keep things a little bit lighter. So I stamped it with the craft ink, and then I'm just using two of my clean color real brush markers to color in the body of the dog. The color challenge was basically kind of a craft color and then an aqua color and white. That was another reason why I stamped the image in a lighter color. So I used oatmeal and beige clean color markers and just did one little section at a time. Really simple. And then I just used my little H2O detailer water brush to blend the colors together. And the further I got into this wasn't my intention to do like a no line watercolor, because usually those take a lot more time and effort and patience, which I didn't have any of those today when I made this card. But as I got further along, it kind of made it look more like a no line watercolor. So I kind of consider this like a cheated, no line watercoloring method, because yeah, it's not fully, but it kind of is. It's kind of in between there. So it kind of worked. So I did the whole body of the dog with just these two markers, kind of blend them together and letting it kind of fade more in the middle for just lighter areas. And then once I did his entire body, I'm going to go on and do, I think I did his nose next. Sorry, it's late and I'm tired and I was running late as I was making this. So I kind of forget the steps I did. No, I did his nose first. So I just used the black there for his nose and filled it in. And then started to let everything dry before I went on to anything else. And then I did the ground, and for that I used green gray. I will have a picture on my blog of all the colors used. I didn't use very many, but I did take a picture of them just so that they're there for reference. So I scribbled on some of that for the ground and then just pulled it out with my water brush. And I can't remember if I mentioned or not, I'm using the Strathmore Ready Cut watercolor paper for this. I find this one works really well with these markers. I'm able to really pull the color out nicely and I don't get any harsh lines. So that's what I used for this. And then for his little color, I'm using Persian green. And then finally just yellow for the little dog tag there. And then this is when it really became apparent that this is looking more no line, because the eyes kind of just fade out and the little dog tag was just kind of there. You couldn't even really see the little hanging part. So I just grabbed one of my Copic multi-liners and drew in the little piece that the dog tag would have been hanging from. And then also went around and filled in the outlines of his eyes and his little pupils there. So just kind of did it a little bit messy because that's the way the image was drawn. So this is a really fine tipped pen basically, and I just kind of went around and filled in the eyes and then the outline of the eyes, and then I also went around the nose, which you can't really, that was kind of irrelevant, it wasn't necessary, but I did it anyway just to kind of give it the teeniest little extra bit of definition. And that finished off this image. So really quick, really simple, nothing too fancy. I think anybody could do this fake no line watercolor. So once that was done, I pulled out my Simon Says Stamp basic rectangles dies and chose the die I wanted to use, and then taped that into place with some micropore tape and then ran it through my die cut machine so that it was die cut. And then I grabbed a sentiment from the Tim Holtz. This is the Ponderings stamp set. So this is another, it just kind of worked with this image, this sentiment. So I pulled out my mini Misty so I could make sure to get this stamp perfectly, because I was going to stamp right over top of this image. So I wanted to make sure I got it right. And I'm also stamping on watercolor paper, which is a little bit textured. And then I remembered this is a rubber stamp. So I had to pull out, there's a little foam mat that comes in the Misty. So I pulled that out and got my image centered again. And I used my little grid transparency just to get everything lined up. And then I inked up the sentiment with Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink. And this is where I'm glad I had my little Misty, because it didn't stamp as crisply as I wanted, or as dark as I wanted, over top of this. So I was able to ink it up a second. And I think I ended up actually doing it 3 times to get it really good and dark. And it was also nice too because these sentiments are a little bit, I guess you'd call them messy. Like they're not perfect, which makes things a little nicer too. So in case you didn't stamp it perfectly, it's kind of meant to look like that. So I did that, and then I pulled that out of my MISTI and I grabbed some MFT Summer Splash cardstock, which is one of my favorite colors. It's so pretty, and it was perfect for this challenge. And I just used my paper cutter to trim it down. I hardly ever use the measurements. People ask me that quite often. I just eyeball it. And I like the little wire in my paper cutter. I use that as kind of a visual guide as well, but I pretty much just eyeball it. And then I'd had this pattern paper from My Favorite Things that I die cut with the largest rectangle die from the basic rectangle set, and ended up changing my mind. So I used a smaller die and die cut it again with the intention to use that frame like I'd done on a previous card that I posted a couple weeks ago. And then I forgot about it, and then I'll remember at the end. So have my pattern paper, and then I adhered the main image to that Summer Splash cardstock, and then decided to rub my fingernail against it to rough it up a bit. This used to be the thing back in the day, like a decade ago when we were card making. You know, we were roughing up the edges of all our layers of cardstock to create all this dimension, and we had little tools. I actually still have some of the tools to do it, but a fingernail works just as great. So I ran my fingernail across that to rough it up, and then I adhered that to the pattern paper with some foam tape. And then my card base is some heavyweight white cardstock cut to 4 1/4 by 11 and then scored at 5 1/2 with my Teflon bone folder. So it's an A2 size card, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then I'm going to adhere my little panel here to the front of the card. And then on the inside of the card, I'm going to stamp that dog again with that same hybrid craft ink. So inked him up and then stamped him onto the inside of the card. And then I grabbed another sentiment. This is from the Crazy Talk stamp set that just says Be Original. I thought that was fitting. And inked up with that same intense black ink and then stamped on the inside of the card. And I thought I was done. I actually finished this. I was editing this video and I'd taken the pictures and edited them. And that's when I remembered that frame, which I totally forgot about. So I went back just a few minutes ago, pulled the frame back out and added some Tombow Mono Multi adhesive to the back of it, just a light amount to make sure it doesn't ooze out everywhere. And then adhered that to the inside of the card just so it's not wasted, 2, it just finishes off the inside because you guys know I like to finish the insides of my cards. So it just kind of gave it a little extra something and just didn't waste that paper. So I adhered that, and now my card is finally finished. So as always, I will have a link below the video to my blog post that'll have links to the supplies used, as well as a link to the color challenge, picture of the markers, all that kind of stuff. So check out the description box below the video if you're interested in any of that or want to know more. And thank you guys so much for watching and subscribing and thumbs upping my videos. I really, really appreciate it. And I will see you guys very soon in the next one. Bye.